Okay, first of all, I don't promise not to cry, but I said I was going to do this video yesterday, and I just couldn't for different reasons. I was traveling, and so I never got to do it. But I said I would start about talking about the day Mommy passed away. So Mommy passed away on November 25th, 2002. We had gone to a Thanksgiving dinner the night before, and we had on a fashion show and everything. She modeled. She did a great job. Everyone enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun. And I guess sometime through the night, she started to experience this really bad asthma attack. And I woke up in the middle of the night because I heard this banging on the door. It was Nurse Scylla. She told me the story. She said Mommy was having an asthma attack. It took a long time to call. So I went in the back, sat on the bed. I saw Mommy on the asthma monitor. And I didn't really think anything of it because Mommy frequently had asthma attacks. And so I didn't think this one was any different. I saw her on a pump before. So I held her hand, and then I kissed her hand, and I went back to sleep. And she was calm. She was saying, Lord have mercy, but she was calm. So went to bed. A couple hours later, Shani wakes me up, and she's frantic. She's worried because Daddy woke her up like in the middle of the night, like, do you have a pen? Do you have a pen? I need a pen. So she was scared, and not to put Zayn business out there, but at the time, actually I could say it anyway, it's in the past. Zayn was sleeping in my bed. So we both woke up, and we went in the back, and this time the scene was much different. It was nurses running around, the doctor was there, Mommy's friend Natalia was there, Daddy looked frantic, and nobody would look us in the eye. Like, nobody could face the kids and look us in the eye. So, we don't know what to do. We are, I guess, right there, and then I think we were in the back room, which is Mommy and Daddy's room. And then Mommy went unconscious the first time. And so, I'm kind of frozen at this point. And Shawnee starts crying, Zayn starts crying, and I just look at them and I don't want to cry, but seeing them cry, I start to cry. And she revives. And, we saw her, and so she revived. And then finally the ambulance came. So a series of things went wrong this night. Her doctor, Dr. Bacchus, shout out to Dr. Bacchus, we love you. He was off the island. Her medication was not on the island, or it had expired. The typical medication that she would normally use. The ambulance was late. I found out this year that the air ambulance was on time, but it couldn't land because the person who signals for the planes to come in wasn't in position. This is early in the morning. And so the air ambulance could not land because protocol has to be in place that person has to be on to direct the planes to land, and that person wasn't there, so the air ambulance was not able to land. And the land ambulance was late, and there's nothing in there to really save your life anyway. So it was better that she waited at home for as long as she did than to get into the air ambulance. So in the course of the ambulance ride, she passed away. So I don't really know that side of it because I wasn't there for that. So Shani and we couldn't stay in the house. Of course, we've never been through anything like this traumatic. So we get dressed and we go to the bus stop because we used to get a bus to school. The school bus used to come. And we get dressed to go to school. It's still like 6 o'clock in the morning. We're the first ones at the bus stop. And Zayn stays home with Daddy. So we go to the bus stop, and we get picked up by someone from Gregorytown, and she drives us to our godmother's house, the baby girls, how we call them. So we get up there, and I am not trying to think the worst. I'm not thinking the worst. I just, you're just trying not to think about the worst that could happen in that moment. But I get out of the car, and I see Olivia walking down the house, and she like bright skin like us, or even a little paler than us, and her face is pink, pink from crying. And then Shawnee starts screaming, no. And then I don't know what I did, and I don't have anybody to tell me what I did. Maybe Olivia, Money Daisy. I know Money Daisy came to me. She hugged me, and she said, "No more, mommy, baby, no more." And those words stuck with me because it kind of wounded me in that moment. I'm 12 years old, and you saying to me that there's, oh, I can cry. You saying to me that there's no more, and like, yeah, I was only 12, but I love my mommy so much, and it was it was heavy day, heavy day. So we drive to the airport where her body was, and we we're driving, and then Shani says, this is so deep, and it even made the front of the booklet. She said, we had her for, Shani was 14, we had her for this many years, and it's time for Donovan to have her now. Something like that she said. And I just quiet. I can't even think like anything poetic. I can't think about the bright side. I just remember the sky was so beautiful. Everything was so beautiful this day, and just like everything in my world was like the total opposite. So we get to the airport. Zane and Daddy are with us now, and I think Zane and Shani were sitting talking, and I remember, like, I wasn't with them, but I overheard some of the adults say it's a good thing that they're talking. It's a good thing that they can talk and laugh at a time like this. You're not laughing because you're happy, but just try to get some normalcy. So I go and sit in the ambulance, and thank you. Mommy had a smile on her face, and that's kind of hard for me to deal with because, thank you. So she was in the ambulance, and she had a smile on her face. And I don't know if anybody has ever had asthma, but I never had asthma. But I think it's scary. I think it probably is painful when you're trying to breathe and you can't get the air that you need to breathe. I think that's a very scary feeling. So after going through all of that, the fact that she died with a smile on her face tells me that, I think there's a spiritual aspect involved with that. I personally, in my realm of belief, I think that either Donovan came, or someone she really loved came and helped her or walked with her into heaven. That's my personal belief. That doesn't have to be debated. So anyway, so she's in the ambulance, and one of the things that I regret is that I didn't touch her. Now, like, my eldest brother Donovan, he passed away when he was 2 years old. He drowned right by their house. I wasn't born yet. He died in '87, and he drowned. And when my parents found him, they picked him up. They loved on him. They took him out to this bench they used to take him to every day, and they hugged him, and because we lived on a family island, which is like a very remote island, they couldn't fly him out that day. So his body stayed in the crib next to the bed that whole night. So I know that's the kind of love that exists in my own family, and that's the way my mommy treats her own. But I couldn't touch her. And I said to say, I know if it was me, she would have touched me, she would have hugged me, but I couldn't touch her. And that's something that I regret to this day. I think some of it was resentment, the fact that she was smiling when she left 3 children to go to 1. So, okay, it was a rough thing. And we flew to Nassau, and the sky was so blue. I remember just the sky being so blue. And we went to my grandmother's house, and I didn't even notice that I didn't eat. I remember Chrissy's on here. She said, "Oh, you guys want McDonald's?" And I mean, we coming from the island, of course we want like fast food, but I don't even think we went. I don't think I wanted food. And I remember one of Mommy's good friends, Aunt Marie, normally so strong, she came inside, saw everybody, and then she walked outside and just started screaming. So it was rough to see um people come around. She meant so much to so many people, and to just lose her so quickly. I didn't mean to do this. Okay. So anyway, so that was that day, and progressively, there was the funeral, which was 5 days later. I don't know how they did that. Another hard thing was, I don't know if this why this was, but they when the children were at the gravesite, they kind of sent us to the limo. I guess my family isn't into the dramatics. I know that for a fact. So I don't think they wanted to see the three kids screaming or anything like that. So they sent us to the limo. We were in the limo with my cousin Relic and my cousin Chelsea, and we were laughing and stuff like that. But a part of me wanted to be there to watch her go down. I also didn't go to the wake or went the viewing because Zane and Shani didn't want to go. And personally, I think those decisions that I make following after people, like, yeah, that may have worked for them, and I don't judge them anyway for that. But I should have stayed, I should have gone, and I should have watched her body go down, because essentially I didn't bury her until 2 years ago. She was unburied in my life up until 2 years ago. And I had to deal with it year after year after year. And only 2 years ago did I really face, Demi, you did not bury your mommy. And these things that I have learned through my relationship with God. So it's been a journey to today. Lost a lot of weight. Was very, very small. It's a big difference between me being 12 and 13 and 14. I was like a stick figure. So it was a traumatic event for me. I also faced a lot of different things in my relationship with my dad and stuff. Love him, I've forgiven him for everything, and a lot of things I really shouldn't have held against him. But essentially, for 2 years, I can say for 2 years for sure, I didn't know that I was mad at him. And I remember I was going to sleep over in Harbor Island, and somehow it got canceled, and I was kind of upset. And I get in the car and I'm kind of rude to him, and he says to me, Zemi, he shouts at me, Zemi, you can't get mad at me forever because your mommy died and not me. And I sat there and I was still mad at him, me being my little preteen self. I was still mad, but I said, you know what, Zemi, he's right. You're mad at him. You're mad because your mommy is gone and she would do anything for you, and yet, I mean, it's not to say my daddy wouldn't do anything for me. It's just that it's a different type of thing. And I talk about it when I get to these 14 things. Your mommy serves as a covering for you. And I think a lot of people don't realize this when they have their mommy. Your mother is a covering, especially as a child. A lot of things people say about you, yeah, he said that. A lot of things people say about you, you don't feel the direct impact of it because your mommy is there. So say, for example, let me tell you what things changed. Everything was different. So, for example, if I had a guy friend, all of a sudden I'm fast. And that's because your mommy is in there. All of a sudden, all of a sudden you fast, you this, you that, because your mommy isn't there to protect you from that, or people looking at you with more scrutiny because your mommy isn't there. So that's one thing that I realized, that your mommy does serve as a covering and she protects you. And even there's a friend of mine, her mommy passed away and she has a little sister. And I know the things her mommy let us get away with as kids. And when they look at this little sister, anything that she wears is, oh, she shouldn't be wearing that, she's too young, or this gonna do that, this gonna do that. And I know her mommy would let her wear it. So it's just a difference between having your mommy there and not there. And then another thing was hard was that people wouldn't come around. They would say, oh, it's hard for us to be in the house without Dee. We can't come. We're gonna cry. It's very hard to come. And that was hard for us because we were like, we're still here. We still need you. So I had a lot of resentment for a full year because I felt like I was raising myself. Yeah, I had my daddy there. There's a different story with that, but I would not share that publicly. Um, I had my daddy there. I had support systems, but I felt I made a lot of decisions on my own. I felt like I made the choice to say, my high school boyfriend, you go home now. I made those choices. I made the choice to say, I will not lose my virginity in high school. I made those choices. I had really no guidance on those decisions. I made those choices. So essentially, for a full year, I felt like I parented myself. I know I'm thankful for Uncle Ray, who made that decision to take us in, but even that was a huge leap for us. And a lot of people don't know it as well who know me recently. When I was 14, I moved to Nassau, the city, to live with my mommy's youngest brother. He took myself, my twin brother, and my sister, and we lived with him. But that was a huge jump for me because I went from essentially saying, okay, Zemi, you go home at this time. Or, Zemi, you do this, you could go walk wherever you want to walk. Because I lived in the island, you know, everything was safe. And then you go to the city and all of a sudden it's who, what, when, where, why, how. You know, it was a big adjustment for me. And I had, like I said, I had resentment from being my own parent essentially for a year that even today, Ian has to deal with me not liking him telling me what to do because of that stage in my life where I felt there was no one in the gap. And I know people may think that they tried, but that's my 13-year-old perspective of it, that I felt like there was no one there when we begged people to come and they couldn't come. That moment was when we needed you. That's the takeaway from this as well, that even if it's hard for you to go somewhere again or talk to someone. I know I have a friend who lost a very close friend, and the mummy keeps begging the guy friends to come over. And I think you should make the best of it and really try to go somewhere, even if it hurts you, to go out of your comfort zone and to go. So make that person feel normal again. Make them feel like everything wasn't taken away from them. You know what I mean? So just try, even if you're gonna cry when you get in the car, just do it anyway. So the real thing about this is I have 14 things that I learned in my 14 years of being motherless. So number one is time does not heal. And I was going to put time does not heal all wounds, but what I've learned is time doesn't heal, period. So what do I mean by that? Even if you think about a scab, time isn't healing the scab. Time is allowing your body to naturally heal the scab. So in my world, time doesn't help. Like I said, I spent 11 years, 12 years grieving, and I still grieve. You still grieve. So I spent all this time grieving, and time doesn't help. You have this huge hole in your heart, and over time you fill things in. You learn how to fill it. You learn how to deal with it. So for me, I filled it with mother figures. I filled it with my friends. I just filled it up, you know. But time does not heal. Number two, only God can heal you. There are some things today, yeah, I still deal with stuff, but when I look at my life overall and some experiences that I went through, that I'm like, oh wow, I'm healed from that. And I was like, only God could do that, because there's no way that I didn't even know how to address that hurt. In some of my younger works, I wrote that I feel pain where not even the most adept of surgeons can reach. And a lot of that pain is gone. And I couldn't do that. Time was not doing that. Boyfriends were not doing that. I was never a big drinker. I never smoked. But time and every single vice, no vice could do it. Only God did that. And I recommitted my life 3 years ago. And in that span of time, I have healed in ways that I just could not on my own. So that was a big one. You now live for two. And this is the big one. This is number 3, you now live for two. So what do I mean by that? So Tamaz Thompson passed away. I think we're on her 2nd year now. She passed away last year. And so she has a godchild. And I remember one of the mothers saying, oh, you won't be here to come over anymore. You won't be here to experience that. And in my heart, I wanted to say, and I think I did write it to her, that now that Tamaz is gone, you live for two. So you love on your son as if she's loving on your son too. So you do these things as if you're living for someone else too. You have these experiences like you're doing it for them too. You give to different organizations like you've given for her too. So you have to live like that. Like for me, it was really important to me, especially with a unique name. Like, um, I don't know how many Zemis you know, but with a unique name, I felt like I had to reflect my mommy properly. I had to make her legacy, like I had to not, I didn't want to spoil her legacy. I didn't want to embarrass my mommy, regardless if she was here or not. I wanted to make her proud. So I felt like I did a lot of things in trying to make her proud and in not, not damaging her name at all or her legacy of parenting. I learned a lot from my mommy in 12 years. I still apply the things I learned from my mommy today. And I've been motherless more than the time I had a mother. So that speaks a lot to who she was as a person. And so you now live for two. Don't think of yourself as losing somebody. You're living for that person as well. Number 4, living your life and building your own legacy does not take away from theirs. So this is something that I had to learn. Although yes, I wanted to make my mommy's legacy great, I didn't want to spoil her legacy. I got confused. I got I got seriously confused in this moment because I started living more for my mommy than for myself. And that is a very, very, very thin line in that situation. And I had to wake up and say, okay, Zemi, you made your mommy proud. You are now an adult. I'm now 26 years old. I had to say, okay, now you start living for you. You start making the decisions to start living for you. Yes, I always do things for my mommy. I go to people who are friends with my mommy. I have conversations with them. I build relationships with them because as someone who looks like her, I also represent her as well. But you have to make sure that you don't start living for them so much that you forget to live for you. Live out your own dreams. Yeah, my mommy said to me, Zemi, I don't think you should be a writer because you won't make any money unless you write a best-selling book. So for a long time, I said I didn't want to write. That's how I got into poetry because I just get the little fix by writing a short piece here and there. But really, I wanted to write novels. And for a long time, I was stuck on like, I can't be this because mommy wasn't proud of it. And then more and more time passed, and I realized this makes me happy. This is what I want to pursue on top of the other things that I do professionally. I'm a business analyst. On top of all of the things I do professionally, I also tutor. I also need to give this room. I need to write. Even if she said it was a bad idea, I want to do it, so I'll do it for me. And that's just an example. Number 5, the days leading up to her death day are the hardest. So a lot of people think, oh, the day of. Let's only show support on the day of. And Ian, I love you, but you made this mistake this year. So what Ian did, Ian thought that, okay, I only need to be supportive and I only need to shower her on the day of or the day before and the day of. No, that's not how it works. At least not for me. The hardest is the week leading up to. And so for me, mine is attached to Thanksgiving. You have some people who attach the death day to their birthday or their birth month or Christmas even. Some people, the whole holiday season reminds them of losing somebody. So as soon as like Thanksgiving advertisements come up, that's when I need more support. And I'm pretty good at coping on my own. I know what to do. But that's when I start to need more support. That's when I start to be like, okay, Zemi, ignore, and then you start to see more and more posts. And that's when I need more support. So I'm shaking. I don't know if I'm shaking the thing too. I don't know if, so for me, I need support the week leading into the day of. I'm fine. I'm okay. Yeah, I may cry. I didn't cry this year. I may cry here and there. But the days leading up to it are the hardest for me. Afterwards, I'm okay. Same for Mother's Day. Because you never know how you're going to react on that day. So I don't know if Mother's Day going to come and I'm going to be like totally out of it. Can't get out of bed. I don't know. So the days leading up, I'm like, okay. System build up. Shock system build up. So the days leading up to Mother's Day is hard. But Mother's Day is a special one because, you know, you see people shower their mothers with love. And I have grown to love that because I realized about myself now that I can't stand to see people talk about their mothers in a bad way, whether they deserve it or not. Sorry, if you're my friend, if you're my family member, you can't do it around me. I don't allow my friends to talk bad about their mothers around me. I don't support it. I will never encourage you in that because guess what? I don't have one. So I remember mom used to call me out of my bed to go drive with her in town for cigarettes. So mommy used to say, "Come hang out these clothes," and I'm like, "Mommy, you have 3 kids. Why you keep calling my name?" So, I'll do it. But in retrospect, I obviously wish I had more of that. I wish I had someone to annoy me and say, "Hey, let me do this to me, do this to me." So if you still have that, then walk it out. Do it. It's nothing. It's nothing to doing it, and you're gonna look back and say, "Hey, I'm glad I made life easier for her," because you don't know what you could have saved her from. You don't know what stress you could have saved her from in that moment. You don't know how you prolonged her life in that moment by taking up a task that she would have had to do. So, yes, wash those dishes. um, okay. Everyone grieves. Some 6. Everyone grieves differently. So, for example, um, even like my obviously I'm a twin, so I'm the same age as him. We both had the same event happen, but Zane lived out his loss differently. And I guess I could say it. I'm gonna push everybody business out there, but Zane actually had some incidences where he was almost suicidal. So obviously that was not my story. Yes, I have felt low, but that wasn't my story. But for him, the loss was so great in his own life that he couldn't deal with it. And sorry, Zane, if I put your business out there, you're gonna get a lot of support today. Zane walked off our roof in a Luthra, and he hurt his ankle. And I didn't figure this out until I was much older. But that just shows you how people go through loss differently. Even my sister harbors some things about it that I don't harbor. You know what I mean? So everybody goes through differently. And these are 3 people who experience the same event at the same time, and they grieve differently. So imagine your neighbor, how they grieve, how their grief is different from their coworker. So everybody grieves differently, and I think we have to look at that. And we can't say, "Oh, you grieve like this," or "There's a time frame on grief." There's no time frame on grief. There's no structured way that grief is supposed to look like. Yeah, you learn the however many stages of grief, but that's crap. I mean, yeah, it works for some people. Some people follow that trend, but not everybody. And those people are not, it's not that they're not normal, they're just different. It's personal. Thank you. Okay. So I covered number 7 too. There's no normal way to grieve, no set time period. So for some people, and it's different for different people. Now, when I lose people, sometimes I pretend like they're still here. That's how I handle my friend Ali's mother's death, Etta May. I pretend like she's still alive. That's how I handle it. It's totally crazy, but I pretend that she's still alive. She's just on a Lutheran. That's how I couldn't handle it on top of everything else, and she died on November 30th, which is the day I buried my mother 10 years later, which is crazy. I couldn't handle it. So I say, she's still in the Luther. She's chilling. That's just how I deal with it. With Mummy, I grieved for, like I said, 11 years straight. Year after year after year, reliving it year after year after year. With Annie Daisy, that was a huge one for me. She's one of the Baker girls, like I mentioned earlier, and she really filled in a lot of gaps where Mommy was. And same for Monique, who's actually an ex of mine's mother, who I became very close to. And these people started to fill in gaps for me that I had. And when I started to lose them, it was sending shocks to my system. And I grieved for each of them differently. I don't even think I had time. I lost all of them in 1 year. So February, July, and November. And so sometimes you have to pretend like it didn't happen. Sometimes, I don't recommend that. Honestly, I do not recommend that. For me, I had to do that with one of those. The other 2 I faced, I went to their funerals, but the one I didn't go to the funeral, it was easy for me to say, "Hey, this didn't happen." And so everyone grieves differently. You shouldn't knock anything that anybody does, because that's how they have normalcy. There are unhealthy ways to deal with grief. Okay, so if you see someone who is drinking their life away, that's unhealthy. If they're cutting themselves, that's an unhealthy way to grieve. If they can't get out, if they intentionally stay in bed day after day after day after day after day, they won't do anything, they won't eat, that's an unhealthy way to grieve. So, yes, everyone grieves differently. There are some unhealthy ways to grieve, and there are some forms of grief that mean that you lose yourself. You start to cave into a very, very dark place and you lose yourself. So, those ones, I'm not personally, I don't know how to deal with those situations. You have to see a professional. We have someone here. Look at the comments. I don't know how to deal with that, and I know of people who have gone that route, and it's very scary for me. And I have to say to you, this pain, yes, it hurts, but you won't feel this depth of pain forever. Keep going step by day, step by step, day by day. And sometimes when I see people who I know have faced that moment of I'm gonna lose myself, I can't deal with this, I'm gonna lose myself, and when I see that they have come over, because I call it the other side of grief, when you view your grief in a different way, and you still experience it, but you get to the other side of grief where you can see the purpose in the grief, and I call that the other side of grief, where I felt like I've been for the past 2 years. So when I see people who I know potentially could have lost themselves, I say to them in my code, I don't know if it's directed to them, I said, thank you for not giving up. Thank you that you kept going. Because I can't fathom losing you. And so I thank you for deciding to keep going. Not for yourself, because maybe you couldn't do it for yourself, but for the people who are still here who loved you, you kept going. And I think we need to be open to people. We need to realize when we see these red flags, and we need to think, okay, what do I do? What do I do in this moment? What you do not do is say, it's time for you to move on. What you do is you listen to them and you try to understand what they're going through. And even if you just sit there and listen and you say, you know what? I love you. I want the best for you. And I want you to keep moving forward through this. Okay. Writing, art, expression can help. So it has been proven that writing about your experience does help you deal with the experience. And so a lot of people say, oh, I'm not a writer. How can I do that? I'm not you, Zemi. I don't write about stuff that's not easy for me. But writing about what you went through, even if you write it on a napkin, it does help you. It does help you conceptualize the grief. It helps you understand it. It helps you face it. And it does make you feel better. That's a fact. Now, if you don't like writing, there's also art. There's doodling. There's rap. There's drawing in the sand. I don't know, but there's different ways that you can express your grief. And so that's a part of the premise of my book. You turn whatever you've gone through into something beautiful. You turn your it into something beautiful. So I gave my it to the pages, and I truly, truly recommend that you write it out. Just get it out there. You don't have to make it public like me. You don't have to throw everything out there. But even if you keep it personally for you, I think it's really, really, really beneficial. Number 10, cherish your memories. Okay, I call this the second death. Losing my mommy was difficult, but what hurt me to my core more than losing her was forgetting how she smelled, forgetting how she laughed, forgetting what her hair felt like, forgetting the sound of her voice. Those things hurt way more than losing the actual person. So as if I know you, and some people recently, they have lost people, and I just couldn't reach out because I couldn't even why I couldn't, but sometimes I try to get in people's inbox and I say, save the videos, smell her clothes, or write things down. As soon as this event happens, I know it's painful, but get with family, and when they're talking about them, record their memories, because the hardest thing is when the memories start to fade, because it makes you feel like, did I love her enough? And yeah, I know obviously you did love that person, but it hurts you to know, I can't remember this, I can't remember that. So as soon as something happens, or even now, start to cherish these memories. Record people, record their voices, get to know what kind of scents that they wear. I know Mommy wore a lot of scents, so for me it's difficult, but get to know what kind of perfumes they wore. Yes, thank you. I would love that. Zane, though, Zane, laughs just like mommy when something is really, really, really funny. And so I heard it once since she passed away, but I would love to hear it again. Love you, Zane, if you watch this. Um, what's it say? Someone's memory alone. Oh, okay. Keeping someone's memory alive is healthy. A lot of people think this is unhealthy, but I guess that's like again, there's a fine line with this. Like if you go and stuff someone and keep them in their bed, I think that's a little unhealthy. But you can hear me.
I just heard that one.
But
because I had a visual, that's why.
But that's Pia. Say hi, Pia. We're on Facebook Live. Facebook Live.
What is it, your friend?
No, it's Facebook. It's like a whole live platform. Yeah. Okay, she's shy. Okay, so keeping someone's memory alive is healthy. So, for example, when my mommy lost Donovan, we weren't born yet. Zane, Shani, and I weren't born yet. But we grew up thinking we had a brother. We knew everything about him that they knew. We would go to his grave. We'd give him gifts. So he was never dead to us. He was always alive to us. And that was very important for my parents. And I really appreciated that because to me, I had an older brother. And I actually did, even though we weren't alive in the same span of time, but he exists to me. And I think that's very important that my mommy and my daddy were intentional about making him exist to us.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people say to me, you know, I'm so happy that you keep your mummies alive and you keep your mummy's memory alive and you make sure that people remember her. And that's important to me because what really hurts is when I get introduced to people who used to know mummy and I get introduced as Reggie's niece. Love you, Uncle Ray. I get introduced as Reggie's niece and he's the baby of the family. So it's like almost like mummy is erased and I only get considered to be Reggie's niece. And I love me and Reggie's niece. I do. It comes with a lot of perks. But I also want to be remembered and introduced as being Deanna's daughter. Because that's very, very, very important to me.
Amen.
That people knew who she was.
Amen.
Number 12. When someone loses someone, one of the worst things that you can say is, I know exactly how you feel. That's easy, right? I know exactly how you feel. When mommy died, and there's people I knew for ages, I wanted to punch them for telling me I know exactly how you feel. I know I look like I can't hurt a fly, right? I would get so angry. I was like, what do you mean you know exactly how I feel? And I kind of talked about that earlier. It's, you know, Zane went through a loss. You think Zane could say to me, Zemi, I know exactly how you feel? No, you don't. No, you don't. And he lost Deanna just like I lost Deanna. But I can't go to Zane and say, Zane, I know exactly how you feel. I know exactly how you feel. I feel that exact same way. No, I don't. Because our losses are different. Yep. He was the only boy, and he had a special relationship with mommy that I would never have. So he lost something unique and special. And I lost something unique and special. And Shani lost something unique and special. And again, that's only in our little triangle. I also can't go to my daddy and say, Daddy, I know exactly how you feel because he lost his wife. He can't get that back. His soul became joined to somebody and they're now gone. Daddy's whole identity was wrapped up in being Bill and Deanna, Bill and Deanna, Bill and Deanna. And when you lose that and you just become Bill, that's a very, very hard pill to swallow. So I can't go to anyone, and that's just within my own family. So I don't encourage anybody to go to anyone and say, I know exactly how you feel. I have lost mother figures. I've lost friends. I've lost puppies. For some people, that's a big deal. I have lost animals. I've lost my mother. I've lost my grandmother tragically. And I can't go to anybody and say, hey, I lost my grandmother last year. I know exactly how you feel. Because you know what? I don't. And I encourage each of you to wake up and please stop doing that. Please stop doing that. That's a huge no-no. Another one is be strong. Please stop telling people to be strong. I know you mean it in a good way. But please stop telling people to be strong because sometimes they need to be weak. If they don't spend a couple days being weak, it's so hard to deal with that later on. When it starts to come up and they realize, hey, I didn't grieve. Hey, I didn't deal with this. The support system gonna be gone. they have that support system for maybe 2 weeks tops. Let them be weak so that they don't have to face it 3 months later and there's nobody around them. Let them have that time to just be weak and to really experience that loss. Number 13, you can know someone's dirty laundry and still love them no less. Okay, so for me, I learned, I was 12, I was young. But I love my mommy so much. And as I got older, I started to learn more stuff about her. Not so good stuff. And some stuff I had to be like, really, mommy? But I sat down and I said, okay, I know this information. How does this make me feel? How do I feel about her? But you know what? I woke up and I said, you know what? I don't love her any less. I still love her the same. And so if you have memories of someone, they could be not so good memories. I mean, you have to be wise with this, mind you, because not everyone is of the maturity level to handle this information. But don't feel like you have to hide the dirty laundry. You can be honest and open, and you can give a full picture of who that person really was, and it's helpful for someone. Like, it was helpful for me to get an understanding of who my mommy was holistically. And knowing all of those things, I don't love her any less. I actually love her more. And it helped me to look at my daddy and love him more and give him more grace, because nobody's perfect. Even my mommy, who I idolized and put her up as the peak of perfection, she wasn't perfect. She was an amazing woman, an amazing nurse. She saved a lot of lives, but she was not perfect. And so my daddy, although he's made mistakes, he's not perfect. His grief was different. He walked a different grief walk than we did. And I extend him grace and I forgive him and I love him every day. It does. I mean, some things hurt me. Love you, daddy. Some things you do hurt me. But we have to give everyone their space to walk out their grief differently. And that's so important. Number 14. Almost 14 years, so this is the last one. A mother's covering cannot be replaced, but there is so much to be learned from others. So I have spent the last 14 years of my life observing. And, I was like, I didn't know how to cook, still learning how to cook. It was a lot of things I just didn't know how to do. So I would look at my friends' mothers, my boyfriend's mothers, my mommy's friends, Chrissy, Wendy, all my cousins, Leslie. I would observe them and what they did. And so that was how I painted the picture of what I want to be like as a mother, or the things I want to embody as an adult, as a grown woman. That's how I learned. You can't just sit there and let yourself have these gaps. You have to try to fill in the gaps in whatever way you can. And sometimes I learn things like what not to do. I learn what not to do from observing. And sometimes I learn, okay, I want to incorporate that. Or I saw things that are parallel with my mommy. As she said, use Google. So I learned things that my mommy used to do too, so I channeled those things as well. So it's really important that you identify the unique gap that you have. For some people, there's no daddy figure. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to sit there and let yourself have a gap? Or are you going to say, okay, what would I want to learn if I had a father? Would I want to learn how to clean my shoes? Yeah. Would I want to learn how to properly iron my pants? Yeah, I think so. Would I want to learn how to dress properly for work? Yeah, I think I want to know that. Would I want to learn how to put bait on a fishing rod? Yeah, I think I want to know that. So if you identify, I want to learn what I think I should be learning, then you have to realize that it's up to you who would be the one who would be negatively impacted if they don't learn that information, to go and seek that information. So that's my final point. You identify your gaps and you make sure you fill them in whatever way you have available for you to do. And like Shante said, sometimes that comes through Google. So that's the 14 things I learned since being motherless. If you have any questions, I'll answer 2 questions. Then I will go on my way. Thank you so much for listening. Let me wait. Can
you hear me?
Yeah. Do you have a question?
I'm just thinking.
Okay, so no questions. Thank you so much. I hope this encourages you, if not how to deal with your own grief, but how to treat people who have dealt with grief. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for paying attention. Love you all. And I guess stay tuned for next year when I do 15. And I probably should include my siblings in that because they have a lot more. I can attest to that. Hop up. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm waiting. No, I can see their comments. Love you.
How many people are there?
21. Mm-hmm. Love you, Wendy. Love you, Dr. Bacchus.
Dr. Bacchus, I'm Dr. Bacchus.
What would you say to young women out there who have gone through grief or in general?
Embrace your grief.
Mm-hmm.
Do not. And when you're ready to embrace your grief, don't ignore it. It's not going to go away.
Who have lost their mothers, whether living or have died too. Okay. So I have a lot of things to say to young women. I guess I'll say what I would say to my younger self. And I used to hear this repeated so much as a child. And I kind of like brushed it off. But they used to tell me, get your education first. Don't worry about no man. That is the best advice you could give a young woman, especially in today's economy and in the way that things are going today. So, for example, when I went to university, I ended up in an unhealthy relationship. There was physical abuse, verbal abuse, and I got, with all my other things going on, like dealing with mommy and so dealing with the depth of that and trying to understand that, I was failing courses. That's why I'm in school right now, finishing my undergrad. I had to come back to finish. So I failed courses. I would sleep all day. I was like really, really deep in depression at that point. I had to go see a specialist. I thought I had PTSD. I had flashbacks. I could see myself being kicked. So a lot of stuff was going on mentally. And in that time frame, he graduated with distinction. And not only did he do that, he went on to get his master's. Meanwhile, I left school. Pretty much I dropped out of school and went to work. And I had to face all the things that I went through. So I would definitely say, make sure that you get your education. Put your goals high up there. I'm not saying be selfish and only think about yourself, but really make sure you're in a place where you're stable. Because even now, you know, being with someone in a relationship that's healthy, that's good for me, that I see progressing very well, I have all these things to dig through and I have all these things to go through because I want to make sure that when I'm finally connected with this person completely, that I'm a whole person connecting with another whole person. And so I think that is very important. Make sure that you set your goals in order so that you are a whole person connecting with another whole person, if that's your goal. But I would definitely say make sure your goals are high up there. And I would also say to someone who is lost, it's different when you lost somebody living, but so I would say don't internalize the reasons that they left. Like, for example, when mommy died, I thought that I lost both mommy and daddy. I thought I lost mommy to death and daddy to life. And that was very hard for me to process. And obviously there was some anger and stuff involved with that, but when I forgave him, it was freeing for me. Forgiveness is freeing. And so I have to forgive daddy sometimes every day. Sometimes he says something and I was like, why did you say that? So I have to forgive him. It's a daily process, almost daily. I have to forgive him daily. And I think that's important. Sometimes we have to literally walk things out daily. And then even with depression, I don't think you get over depression just like that. I think you have to, when the thoughts come up, you have to walk them out daily. And so that's what I would say. If there's anything else, I'm going to close. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Love you, Simone. I think the last thing I want to say is there are two things that I battle with. One of them was I lost my mommy suddenly, right? And I would always think or have these discussions with people. There's losing someone suddenly, and there's losing someone who when you know you were gonna lose them. So like a terminal illness like cancer, and I'd say, okay, which one is easier? And I don't think comparisons like that do anybody any good because you never can prepare for the day that they go. So I had to live through that with Auntie Daisy. Auntie Daisy had cancer, and one time I spoke to her, and she said, "Oh, Zami, don't come home, do your exams." And that same day, I arranged for my ticket to be booked because I wanted to be there. I wanted to see her. And she actually died the day before my flight. And although I knew her days were coming to an end because that's the reason I booked the ticket, hearing that she died and knowing that she wasn't there, especially when I was going to be there, it hurt me. And it really, really wounded me. So I think we shouldn't uphold anybody's grief over anybody else's grief. Oh, you had time to plan for that and my lost mine suddenly. I don't think we should do that. That's a very, very unsafe ground to be in. Okay, good. And also those who, like a friend of mine, he never knew his dad. But obviously, his dad died. And obviously I knew my mom. And I remember I asked Mommy, because one time we came to Canada and she went to the funeral of someone she didn't know because that person had lost, she was in a car accident and the daughter died. And I said, Mommy, what do you think is worse? And she said, well, she knew her daughter longer than I did, so her pain may be greater than mine. But I don't think that's true either. I think we shouldn't, like, that person was robbed in a sense of experiences for their whole life. Yeah, she did. That person was robbed for experiences for their whole life. And so, yeah, you were robbed of your future, and you get to know the exact difference between your life before and after. But we should never invalidate anybody's experience with grief, whether they knew the person or not, because I think we should always seek to understand where people come from and really try to understand the depth of their loss, what they lost, how does it impact them before we judge them. I had a lot of people say to me, especially boys I dated, not now, not currently, they'll say, I don't understand why every year you so sad and you lost your mommy like 7 years ago or 3 years ago or 5 years ago. Why you still impacted? But these same people couldn't go 5 days without a phone call from their mother. So I say, you can't deal with not having a phone call from your mommy and she's still on this earth. I don't get phone calls. I can't get phone calls. I can't get an email. I can't hop on a plane and see them. So don't go around saying you have a time frame, you have a time limit, why aren't you over it yet? That's very unhealthy, and you isolate that individual. So I think that's it. I think I touched on those who watch people grieve, those who are grieving. Thank you so much. I do try to be her advocate. I do try to keep her alive. Her name was Deanna Charmaine Saunders, and then she got married and she became Holland. And I think it's so important that we remember who she was. She was an excellent woman, and I try to do my best to make her proud and also make myself proud. Make the Coakleys proud, make the Hollands proud, make the Saunders proud. I do my very, very best to walk in a way that brings good light to my family, good light to my friends who helped me along this journey, and also good light to myself, because like I said, I do have a unique name. I take pride in that. I'm happy that I was named what I was named, because I truly represent myself. You could say, oh, that's Brittany, and you'd be like, which Brittany? But if you say that's Zemi, there's only one Zemi, and you know who that person is talking about. So I take that very seriously, and I try to do my best to reflect these people in a way that is great. So I love you all. I'm so happy that my family was on this call. My friends were on this call. It's very difficult to get everything out, but I love you so much. And good night, everyone.
do that.
I'm trying to figure out how to end it. Oh, finish. Bye.